this. Okay.
Really, young people to have a say in matters that affect them. I think
This focuses on the social issues of environmental impacts.
But how many people, not only young people, how many people even here in Zambia are out of it, you know?
And just earlier on today, I was actually trying to interact with
youth, and especially for caring for women. But do you think that this, study, this field that we're expertise, just a little bit about it and how best young people can understand this?
Okay.
really, young people to have a say in matters that affect them. I think
this focuses on the social issues of environmental impacts.
But how many people, not only young people, how many people even here in Zambia are out of it, you know?
and just earlier on today, I was actually trying to interact with
Youth, and especially for caring for women. But do you think that this, study, this field that we're expertise, just a little bit about it and how best young people can understand this?
Okay.
really, young people to have a say in matters that affect them. I think
this focuses on the social issues of environmental impacts.
But how many people, not only young people, how many people even here in Zambia are out of it, you know?
and just earlier on today, I was actually trying to interact with
Youth, and especially for caring for women. But do you think that this, study, this field that we're expertise, just a little bit about it and how best young people can understand this? Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this special edition of Our Perspective. We're here every Fridays at 17:15, but today we begin slightly earlier than usual because we have another scheduled program later on. But we do know that Our Perspective is here every Friday at 17:15. Young people can definitely join into the conversations that we have on social media. Our Facebook page is Our Perspective Movie TV, or better yet, send us a comment or perspective by typing the letters PSP, leave a space, type in your perspective, send your SMSs to 3322. I do believe that sustained economic development typically requires a high level of productivity in the economy to provide food, labor, and as well as savings to the processes of urbanization and industrialization. This year's trade fair, for example, was celebrated under the theme that connotes the private sector's ability to contribute to industrialization. As young people have always been at the center of innovation and development, industry equally provides an ecosystem for entrepreneurship. It also promotes business investments, it fosters technological upgrading and dynamism. It also improves human skills, for example, and creates skilled jobs. And through intersectoral linkages, it establishes the foundation for both economic and social development. Today on Our Perspective, my guest is, you could call him a young entrepreneur, a member of the Surveyors Institute of Zambia. He is also one of the youngest registered valuation surveyors. His vast experience, however, in property, or rather real estate management, qualifies him to be a part of a visionary team of leaders who believe in giving people world-class real estate as well as business services. I invite him on the show today particularly because they have a strong program they have embarked on for the past years, dubbed Business Cares for the Community, and this, for me particularly, is my interest. What's more significant, however, is that they have drastically contributed to industrialization. I beg your pardon. So you will be meeting my guests after this short break, but I'll ask you to send in your comments, your keywords. Don't forget is PSP, leave a space, type in your perspectives, and you're sending your SMSs to 3322. Join me back as we meet my guest, Mwansa Ngosa from Sherwood Green. Join me back after this.
How many people, not only young people, how many people even here in Zambia are out of it, you know?
just earlier on today, I was actually trying to interact with
And especially for caring for women. Do you think that this, study, this field that we're expertise, just a little bit about it and how best young people can understand this? Welcome back. My name is Cheswa Kapasa, and today on our perspective, we discuss how much the private sector has been key to industrialization. It could be in education, it could be in business, it could be in agriculture, it could be in youth and empowerment. But the end of it all, we will, at the end, delve into industrialization. And today, my guest is a young man that we could call him a deputy managing director. And we'll just discover and learn how he has risen to those ranks. Mwansa Ngosa, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Cheswa, and thank you so much for having me.
It's quite interesting. I call you deputy managing director because it's hard for people to imagine a young man being a managing director, a CEO of a company, or whatever, a CEO of a business. And today I draw particular interest in looking at entrepreneurship. We'll look at industrialization. Let's help young people understand, first of all, what comes in your mind when we talk about industrialization?
Well, when we talk of industrialization, we're talking of being able to add technology in order to produce goods or services much faster, different from the way we used to do it in previous times. We've talked of, I know that there's a lot of people that are afraid that they'll be losing their jobs because computers are taking over their jobs. And there are certain skills that have become obsolete with time because technology has changed. And we as young people and as a nation, we have to be able to change with time. So basically, when we're talking of industrialization, we're talking about changing with time. Social media, for instance, you're able to get in touch with your guests during a show using social media. That's something that never used to happen before. And as businesses, we have to find ways in which we can tap into the different tools that are available for us in order to generate more business, more profits, and more viewers for you.
I like your calmness and how you speak. You really speak like a managing director. You are deputy managing director, rather, of Sherwood Green. Before we get into what exactly that you do and how it is that the private sector where you are has contributed to industrialization, probably a brief background about yourself.
Okay. Yeah. So.
Well, it could be personal or business-wise.
I'll start with the part where you go for a meeting and you arrive at the meeting and people are still waiting for the deputy managing director to arrive. That happens to me a lot. I think people really like to see gray hairs and perhaps a pot belly or just a big towering figure. But for those of us with small bodies, sometimes people don't expect you to be able to deliver certain things because they think that you're too young. And so that's part of the challenge that you have to deal with. But I think it's very important to have self-confidence and to really know, to have self-belief in what you are doing.
Great. Yeah. Let's talk about, before we get to your company and what exactly it is that you're doing. I'd probably want to tap into a little bit about your profile. I know that you've have vast experience in real estate, property management, and someone, as I introduced the show, I talked about being a surveyor and valuation and an evaluator rather. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. There's a point at which I was the youngest registered valuation surveyor in Zambia, but not anymore because others younger than myself have been registered. So basically what we do as valuation surveyors is we will be able to advise you on a value. We will tell you how much you're able to sell your house at, how much you're able to rent your house at, how much you're able to insure your property at. And this is a skill which is learned over time, and it takes a lot of education, a lot of training. You have to do a degree program which can be at the university, at the Copperbelt University, or at the University of Lusaka. And then after you've graduated, you need to work under someone who's registered for a minimum of 2 years. Now, a lot of young people have, what can I say? I don't want to say have failed, but they have approached it with a level of apathy, where they will start the process, but then they will drop out of it at some point in order to pursue something else. But there are some that have the discipline in order to finish, and in the previous few years we've seen a number of new registered young surveyors. Yeah. And there are a lot of opportunities in the market. There's demand for our services. The banks require a valuation report before they can give out a facility for anyone who's getting a mortgage. Companies sometimes use their landed property as collateral in order to access funds from the banks. So there is a lot of demand, but there are not enough surveyors.
Great. Well, my guest today, I'm speaking to Mwansangosa. He is, an expert in property management as well as real estate. He is Deputy Managing Director of Sherwood Green. And today, we want to find out how much the private sector has been key to industrialization, looking at the 2030 agenda, sustainable development goals, good education, good health, everything enshrined into one factor. And today we feature a young man that has been through the strings of university as well as some experience here in property management. But first, Mwansa, you were also promoted to be the team leader for the property management department. How do you feel about this?
That was probably about 7 years ago. I was working for a different organization at that time. It was my first experience in a management kind of role where you've been working with your peers all along, and then all of a sudden you are promoted and you have to supervise others. It was a challenge to start with because, sincerely speaking, if we've been relating as colleagues, Cheswa, and then all of a sudden you have to report to me and I'm your boss, there is something that changes. I might not be able to interact with you the way I used to interact with you, and I might do certain things which are necessary, which you might not like. And so you start to lose some friends, and sometimes that's the only way you can get the job done. So it's something that we need to learn as young people, to say at some point you may have to prioritize the work as opposed to friendship.
Great. A lot of young people today still complain about youth unemployment. And you come on this forum talking about how much you have expertise in real estate and things like this. Let's begin, probably with your experiences and how young people should strive to get out of that box where they still feel that they're not able to make the money, on the market. A lot of people now are still crying of youth unemployment. As a young person, really, how do you look at this picture?
Well, I'll start by saying that I know what it is to be unemployed. Maybe not right now, but there was a time when I was unemployed. And at that time, Cheswa, I wrote about, I don't know how many application letters I had written exactly, but I think they may have been over 50. And I had the discipline to visit every place which I knew had the potential to offer me a job. And I went knocking on each and every door. Some of them will tell you that they will offer you a job or they will call you back, and they just go quiet. And if you're faint of heart, you leave it right there. And but eventually something does come through. The time when I got my first job, it was a time when I took an application to a place which I thought they were not going to employ me. And a weekend later, they gave me a call and told me to report. I thought I was going for an interview, but I was going to start working. So people have to try actively. Sometimes we don't try hard enough, but sometimes there are no jobs, but sometimes we just don't try hard enough. And it's also sad that as young people, we spend a lot of time complaining about how that the government is not able to offer us jobs, how that companies are not employing us. Meanwhile, we do have the skills that are needed in order for us to be our own employers. And I think for us to develop, that's what we need to focus on more. We need to focus on using the skills that we have learned in college, in university. There is something that we can do in order to be self-employed, and that is even more important than being an employee.
Great stuff. We are discussing industrialization and the private sector and how much it is key. You yourself are working in the private sector, real estate, property management, and the things that you do. This year's trade fair, just weeks ago, about 8 million kwacha was raised from business proceedings and those that are coming from the international market, locally as well, and selling all of those products. There's a lot of sales and demand factors associated there. But What does this figure reflect for you when you're coming from the private sector, that we could raise so much money at a trade fair, for example?
It means there's money out there. There's money out there to be made. And as a private sector, what you need to understand is that we are in business for ourselves. I know that might sound a bit selfish, but it's a principle of economics. It's an invisible hand. We all do things that are good for ourselves, but in doing things for ourselves, we end up promoting what is good for the society. For instance, I might invest in a shopping mall in a prime location, and by investing in a shopping mall, I'll be able to offer the people that are around that community a place where they can shop from. They could have a place where they could watch movies from, a place where they can go and relax. And in turn, I will be paid money for that. So there are a lot of developments that are coming up, but those are coming up because people have taken the initiative to do business for themselves, to do something that will benefit them, and it does end up benefiting the community. And in my field, in the property field, we have seen a lot of estate agency. There have been sales of land, sales of buildings that are complete, and that represents income for the agency business. So it is something very positive, and we just need to be more dynamic as professionals, because there's a lot of demand for a lot of services which we are not providing at the moment, but the market has that need for those services.
Let's talk empowerment. How do you define empowerment right now? We are living in a global economy where there's a lot of things happening. We're talking businesses burning down, and just yesterday we saw businesses being gutted and all of those things. We're talking street vendors being removed from the street, and we're talking a lot of things that relate to young people not being empowered. Others say they have been empowered enough by government, and we keep blaming civil society or NGOs for not putting to task what government should be doing. Yourself, as a young person, how do you define empowerment?
Okay. Well, empowerment basically is being given power, being given authority to be able to do something. And I will refer to ourselves. We want to have the power to create a better future for ourselves. We want to be able to create wealth for ourselves. And as young people, the most important thing that we can have is the ability to create the wealth. There have been sad stories, Cheswa, of siblings that have received what do you call these inheritances from their parents. They've received properties worth millions of kwacha, so that they can be left well off when their parents pass on. But it's very sad that in no time, what we do with what we were empowered with is that we sell it. And it's very sad, because I've seen a number of people sell the properties that they had received as an inheritance, and then they become destitute. So basically, they had been empowered to be able to use that property in order to make ends meet through collecting a rental. But then they end up selling it. They disempower themselves, and that is very unfortunate. Now, the most important thing that we can be empowered with as youths and as young people is knowledge, because when we have the knowledge, we'll be able to treasure what we are empowered with. And for instance, if I am left a property today, and I have been trained, and I understand that that property represents wealth, that property is something that I can use to earn a monthly income from, that property is something that I can take to the bank and mortgage in order to access funds which I can in turn put in another business. That,
when you say mortgage funds which you can put in another business, can we help young people understand what exactly do you mean?
Okay. What I'm talking about is being able to take your property and giving the title to the bank, and the bank releases money. In exchange, they hold the title. You will have to repay the bank the sums that you have borrowed from them while they're holding the title, and you repay the money. But what it does is that it gives you wealth which you can use to start a new business or a new entrepreneurial endeavor that could generate more money.
Let's talk how youth can be empowered. We'll talk resources, education, knowledge that you've already, briefly touched on. But I want to understand, why should a young person that is 16 or 17 years old, has been left with a house in Kalingalinga or whatever place, what should they be doing to that property? I know you've talked about mortgages and things like that. Why should they value their property, and how can they ensure that indeed at some point that property could be able to become a good business and also contribute to the country's industrialization?
Okay, to start with, it's much easier to sell a property than to buy one, because it takes a lot of saving. Normally, a property will be someone's most valued possession, a high-value item which takes saving for years. In some countries, they have mortgages that run for someone's lifetime, basically, and they can even pass it on to someone else. So this is something that you work for over a long time, and to lose it in a short period of time and not reinvest the money is quite sad, to say the least. But what I normally advise young people is, if you have a property, keep it. And so far in Zambia, the trend has been that if you have a property, the value will continue to grow year after year. We haven't yet reached a point, which we might reach at some time, where property values are going down. But right now, property values have been going up. So if I have a
fixed
property,
assets and things like that.
yeah. But if I have a property today and I sell it today, just think of the fact that if I just waited 10 more years, perhaps I could get a price which might even be 50% higher.
Let's talk. I mean, you were privileged, obviously, to go through university, and you got your first job. You've done quite a number of things, vast experience in being a surveyor and a registered agent. But let's talk about young people that will seemingly have had some economic challenges. And for me, my question to you is, how would you advise a young person out there that is still hopeless and says they haven't even got a property, not even a bicycle out there? What is in real estate? Why should they start investing in knowing about real estate, property management? Why should they be watching us speaking about things that they do not have on the program right now?
Okay. The interesting part about that, Cheswa, is in order to be a participant in the property market, you don't necessarily need to have a property of your own. I'm sure you've heard of estate agents, some of them who do not have a very good name because there are some things that have been done by some unscrupulous people purporting to be agents that have given agents a bad name. But really speaking, estate agents are supposed to be people that you can trust to sell a property for you. So a young person...
How can I know I'm speaking to a qualified or a registered estate agent?
Okay. There is a regulatory body, the Zambia Institute of Estate Agents, and they do keep a register of all registered agents. And if you deal with those agents, you are protected by the fact that if that agent does anything which is unethical, you can report them to the institute and they will be disciplined. So it is very rare that a registered agent will do something which is unscrupulous.
What easier ways can young people, find to make good money at the same time, authentic money, in real estate, for example? I mean, we've heard about agents. You talk about unscrupulous agents that he finds me a house, probably in Kalingalinga or Kabulonga, and for me to just view that particular house, I'll need to pay a viewership, what you call now viewership fee or whatever it is. Is that now the easiest way for young people to be able to make money in the real estate business?
No, that is an illegal way, and that's not a way of making money. That's just a way of swindling people. What is supposed to happen is, as we look for estate agency services, we should be sure to deal with only those that are registered. Go to reputable companies, a company which you know they've got an office, and if there's a problem, you know where their office is. If you meet an individual on Facebook who's got no fixed abode, and you make an appointment, you meet at a property, you don't even know whether that property is available, you pay them money and you don't know whether you ever see them again, you are taking the risk yourself. But I think we can insulate ourselves from some of that risk by ensuring that we deal with only registered entities. But what I would also encourage young people who I have worked with and I love to work with, I would encourage them to seek the services of someone who's registered, reputable, someone who can mentor them. We are able to work with youth that are perhaps not registered, and they are honest people, and they're passionate.
So you work on honesty, or
yes.
you give
honesty
credit to
is,
honesty.
honesty.
How do you
is,
evaluate you are registered value?
Well, it's difficult to tell if someone is honest the first time that you're meeting them, but after you transact with someone, you get to know their character.
So how do you give an opportunity to young people that are still struggling on the market, to get out there, to be empowered? They want jobs, they want to be empowered. I mean, you offer financial services, consultancy as well. What are some of the things that you would say you can, I mean, do you just give a platform to young people to come and learn, or do they come and consult about how they can get a property? What other services would you say you'd offer?
All those are available. We do offer internship for various positions, depending on what someone wants to be and what qualifications they do have. But particularly for a state agency, I know that there are some young people that have got Facebook pages with 600 or 1,000 followers, and some of them have got access to people that are potential buyers of property, and others are potential sellers of property. So just using their network on social media, they can be able to work with us and partner with us, and we can be able to make sure that we take them through the process of registration, and they get to make a little income for themselves in an honest way.
Great. So for those that have huge followings on Facebook, that is your catch. I mean, you've got 5,000 or 10,000 followers on Facebook, and you use it to post probably illicit pictures and many other controversial things. Why not, use it in that way? But let's also talk. Some of the I wanted to touch on the national youth policy. I think we've talked about employment and field development. What exactly would you say about field development and real estate?
Well, when we talk of field development, let's say the development field of real estate, there are a lot of properties which are coming up, which are being developed, a lot of land which was previously vacant, and you see a structure coming up. So there's a lot of potential in our country, in all the towns, to have our country developed. Now, you are able to come up with a product which is consultancy for development. Sometimes someone might want to put up a certain structure in a certain place, but everything, it all comes down to a business case. Is it feasible? Will it be profitable? So that is something that we are able to advise on as experts. And when we find a field and we do a feasibility for it and we find a financial and something comes up, there's a lot of employment which is created from there, because there's one, the agent who's getting a commission from the sale of the plot. There's the seller of that plot who is getting an income, which the government will also tax, so there's also money going into the state treasury. And then there's the team which gets to put the development together, starting from the architect who has to make the drawings and the plans. There's a quantity surveyor who gets to do the bill of quantities and cost the whole project. And then At a more hands-on level, you've got those that are doing the actual construction. You've got the bricklayers, you've got the plumbers, you've got people in metal fabrication. So there's a chain of employment which is created just from one project.
Let's talk about opportunities in real estate. I mean, you, as Sherwood Green, I know you're doing a lot of things. You're talking about, we'll talk later about your timber plantation and how much you've brought industrialization to that sector in Serenge. But before we get there, some of the opportunities, you've talked income. What other opportunities, major opportunities, that could be life-changing for young people in real estate?
I would say it's
just one or two, maybe.
I would say it's learning discipline. Discipline is the most important thing, because someone can start something. They could start accountancy studies or law, and they could drop out. They could drop out before they even pass the bar. But one needs to have discipline. It takes time to get to where you want to be as a professional, and particularly in real estate, everything does take time.
We'll be getting to our messages, but you, as Sherwood Green, have a timber plantation. Obviously, there's youth employment in the sector. There's going to obviously have to be a school, because parents and a lot of people are going to be employed in the sector. There's going to be a health post needed. There's going to be probably an industry that has to be established there. Basically, we're talking urbanization and industrialization. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, there is a timber part of the business which is managed by the managing director. It is in Serenge, so we have a plantation there where we are growing trees, not just deforestation, like what is the norm. And it's something which is a branch off from the business of real estate, but it's something which is there to help the environment. So we're talking of industrialization, and when industrialization came, it started with deforestation. So what we're doing is afforestation. And while we're doing that in a rural community, it is also creating employment for the people in that community. And not only that, but there are also some initiatives that we have done as an organization which have contributed to the well-being of the community.
Great. The other thing, probably before I just get to my messages, another itching issue before I forget is the fact that you are from the Copperbelt University, still employing people that were at Copperbelt University. I think for me, this is a life-changing experience for many of the young people that are still in real estate. People will be wondering, how do you do this?
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of students that are hungry for success. As a business and as a brand, what we wanted was to be able to set up a local brand which is able to provide international standards, which is able to be professional, which is able to compete with international brands. And that has been our journey. And we have found over the years that there are young people that share that vision, that want to offer professional services to a high degree, that want to boost their own individual careers. So we've worked with over 50 students that have come. Some of them have moved on to other organizations, others have stayed and are doing very well for themselves and are developing their careers. But what we like is the passion. As a brand and as an organization, we are very passionate. So when we find someone that's passionate as well and wants to make something of their life, those are people that we support each other with.
Definitely, Mwansa Ngosa is my guest, and today he is the deputy managing director, very much of an expert rather in real estate as well as property management. Let's take a look at my inbox and see what questions you're asking this afternoon. This is our perspective. Type the letters PSP, leave a space, type in your comments and perspectives. You could send us comments and questions to ask Mwansa here live on the program. Let's take a look at my inbox this hour. Good evening, Mr. Ngosa. How are you as a real estate agent? Are you industrializing this economy? Well, how are you as a real estate agent industrializing this economy? That's one message. How did you defeat Zambia's economic hardships to establish a huge institution like yours, Kangwa, Makasa. Thank you so much for those SMSs, Mr. Ngosa. You need to be taking note of those. People today are still being swindled of property, millions of kwachas. How do you help the vulnerable? Banda Andrew. Probably it could be property or, you know, real estate or land, or I don't know how you define land and real estate. Could be one and the same thing. Land has been a huge concern in Zambia. It is an issue is it an issue rather you can deal with too? That is Mebo. Land wrangles still continue in the country. How can people deal with crooked agents? I think that was something that you did, you know, touch on as well. And thank you so much for that SMS. All right, quite a number of issues. Let's start with crookedness. I think you did touch on how you can know to say, I mean, you have to be, it's about honesty at the end of it. But some young people are still worried. They could be crooked of a small piece of land, probably worth 4,000 or 5,000 kwacha.
We should all be worried, not just young people. But criminality is criminality. There's only one way to deal with criminals, and that's to let the law take its course. But as I had alluded to earlier, it is better to deal with established agents with a reputation, because us as businesses with reputation, it is very difficult for us to do something which would tarnish our own reputation. So we need to avoid, if you feel suspicious about someone, if you just have doubts or questions, maybe that's your conscience telling you that you shouldn't go ahead with that particular individual.
I think one question also talked about land. Did you also deal in land? Is land real estate, or is it just property? Or, how do you relate the two?
Well,
really?
Without getting too technical, land is real estate. If we get down to the technical definitions, it is land which becomes real estate or real property. We say that land is the surface of the earth going all the way to the core and up to infinity. That's the literal definition. And then when you start to add buildings, improvements, that then makes land real estate. And then when you add what we call the legal interest, when you hold a certificate of title which says you've got the right to build a property or do what you want on this particular land, that then becomes real property. So yes, we do deal with land.
Under very few minutes, I know that you also deal with valuation as well. Maybe would you call it? Would you be an agent for valuation, or is valuation just valuation its own?
Valuation is quite specialized. You actually have to be registered in order to practice as a valuation surveyor. It's actually illegal to call yourself a valuer when you are not, and it has a registration process.
Very quickly, as we come to the dimensions of the program, I want you to talk about how Sherwood Green has empowered, you know, young people. I know that you've spoken about all of these things, but I want to focus on a very, you know, a good thing that you're doing. You calling it business cares for community.
As an organization, we have an ongoing program which we have dubbed BC4C. It started in 2008 when we set up the organization. What we do is that year after year, in fact, month after month, we do put aside a portion of our earnings, our profits, which go towards the vulnerable. And each year, we're able to make donations to various entities. We've been to orphanages, we've been to schools, we've visited the vulnerable people in prisons and other places. We have been able to sponsor some students through primary school and just tend to the needs of the community. Basically, what we are saying is we are here because of the community, and it is incumbent upon us to be able to give back to our community.
Ngosa, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming. This is our Perspective, 45 minutes detailed discussion of evaluation, land and property management, real estate. And today my guest is Ngosa, who is Managing Deputy Director for Sherwood Green. They have drastically contributed to industrialization. They are from the private sector, dealing with real estate, vast number of clients in finance, and how helping young people and in education, like the Business Cares for Community project and many other, you know, issues. You could definitely visit our website on www.formoreoftheseinformations.com.movietv.com, or alternatively our Facebook page is Our Perspective Movie Television. We'll definitely get to link you to Mwasangoza. This is Cheso Kapas on behalf of my directors, Joe Mwanza and Bright Mataka. Thank you so much. We love you. God bless. Bye.
Affect them. I think
This focuses on the social issues of environmental impacts.
But how many people, not only young people, how many people even here in Zambia are out?
And just earlier on today, I was actually trying to interact with youth.
Everyone's in their place. So don't you run away. Cause Cheeto Chicken is on the case. We really want to say he's our hero. Just you watch the Brooklyn pick and pay attention. Time's a ticket. It's for real. We're not tricking. You're your hero. Cheeto Chicken. Everyone's afraid of Halloween, but I'm not afraid of anything.
There's not much in this big pumpkin, is there?
This pumpkin's empty, but there's a full pumpkin inside. A pumpkin that thinks.
And what's it thinking now?
It's thinking, let me think about it.
It's about time somebody took care of that darn chicken once and for all, Raymundo.
It's Halloween, the night of the living dead. So let's try using a gun.
Yeah, we'll get that chicken by using a gun. We'll use a game. Or a golden rocking horse. Or a gorgeous puppet. Or a great big goofball.
That was very clever, boss. But I think that ghost is the word you were looking for.
You sure it isn't a great big goofball?
I'm pretty sure it's ghost.
Shut up! Shut up! I have an idea. We can use a ghost. The spirit of some ancient haunted castle. An ectoplasm. A poltergeist. A specter with a champion pedigree.
That's brilliant, boss. I never would have come up with that.
Of course you wouldn't have. You don't have a 1,110 IQ, Ray.
I'll start on it right now.
Ray, you've opened up the gates of hell.
I'm auditioning everyone. Don't you want the best?
Get those filthy souls of the damned away from me.
1, 2, 3.
We are zombies.
Who are you?
We are dead, but we're still here. We fill everyone with fear. Our bones are not connected, and our bodies are infected. We are rotting from the inside. Look what I can do with this eye.
I thought I asked you for a ghost, not a bunch of disgusting, decomposing freaks.
Look at this, boss. That's the ghost from the Tower of London.
Nice.
He hates chickens. He got caught stealing all the king's roosters from the royal chicken coop and sliced off with his head.
Chicken! Decapitated on account of a few chickens. That's absolutely perfect, Ray.
Yes, I died for the chicken, died for the chicken, died for the chicken. Yes, I died for the chicken.